How are you doing?
I'm good. It's like 40 degrees in Belgrade, so I'm basically melting, but yeah, surviving.
Yeah. What do you do in Belgrade?
Well, I'm trained as an architect and urban planner, but I have an activist do tank collective, which is kind of pursuing spatial justice, to say it like that. Yeah, so we are
Okay.
very engaged into different urban transformation, self-organization, urban planning processes, and so on.
Okay, cool. What kind of project are you working on right now?
Oh, so right now we are developing the vision for Belgrade for the next 20 years. So it's kind of the idea to create a space for dialogue and kind of alternative document on where do we see ourselves in 20 years. And the reason for it, it's the general plan of Belgrade is currently in the drafting, or it's not, we don't know that because the government is not communicating that very transparent, but it should be in the drafting phase. And we would just like to have our own proposal that is done through collective process with different experts, activists, people who are engaged in the urban policies and development, city development issues. And it's interesting, we are here in Belgrade always kind of defending public spaces, defending our neighborhoods, organizing to stop some things, and protesting. And this is the first time where we are trying to kind of talk about positive things and where do we see ourselves in 20 years.
Okay.
And it's a distance that is already enough far to kind of imagine different things. But it's also not super long period, so you will certainly, at least some of us will be still alive. So
Yeah.
we can kind of, we can kind of fantasize about what we would like to have and how we would like to live.
Okay, cool. Yeah, to be fair, I don't know a huge amount about Serbia, so I'm really excited to talk to you to get to know that area a little bit better. I was just sort of looking at some of the current events or news of Serbia. There have been protests recently. Can you explain sort of what those protests were about? I wasn't sure if they had coronavirus themes as well, or sort of anti-lockdown themes.
Well, yes, it was mostly in the mainstream media and the media European media broadcasted as a protest against the curfew, but the people are here really kind of angry and furious, not only because of the mismanagement of corona virus and all health issues, but degradation of public health, really bad living conditions, frustrations because of the jobs and many processes that took place in the last decades, several years and decades. So it was just like a triggering point that made people kind of completely crazy. And the protests were super spontaneous gathering of people who are angry and furious, without any leader, people with completely different ideological backgrounds, from far right to radical left, people who name themselves as apolitical. I don't get that concept, but there are some people who would say that for them. And it was also, it was visible even when you're there, that there is no leader, that there are no even kind of clear requests. It's anti-governmental protest, but you don't see any kind of alternative strong political actor that could, for example, overtake that power, and somehow navigate. Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, I guess explain that a bit more in terms of you were talking about the mismanagement of sort of health, especially as the coronavirus sort of took hold. What did Serbian's government do?
So we had one of the toughest curfews in Europe, and
Say it again. Sorry.
We had one of the toughest curfews in Europe. So when the state of emergency was declared, the measures were like, of course, closing all the schools and universities, companies that left people working from home. But then the government imposed this curfew from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. Every working day, and from Friday to Monday on weekends. Like none of us could leave the home, but like the most extreme was that people above 65 years, they could not leave their homes at all during several months.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Oh geez. I can't imagine that going over well really anywhere, but there would be all out like chaos here in the US.
Yeah, and we were receiving, yeah, exactly. And, you know, we were receiving like SMS from the mobile state-owned company that we don't have enough, that we are expecting the scenario from Italy and Spain. So people were completely crazy and super stressed and intimidated by the whole situation. And the president were telling us every day that we don't have enough grave sites. I mean, this is kind of, I also tried to erase like the most of the things that happened. And suddenly, I think it was mid-May, the government decided to run for like new parliamentary elections. So they just like cut the measures and said that everything is fine, opened the nightclubs, organized the football derby with 25,000 people on the stadium. Like the whole Europe was laughing at us at that moment. And immediately, the day after the elections, basically the numbers go up like this. Oh and the president then decided to introduce a new curfew, even though the elections were basically illegitimate because the whole opposition was boycotting the elections. So the only party who entered the parliament are the governmental. Are now the one that is governing and the coalition, governmental coalition from the last year. So we have 0 members of the opposition in the parliament.
Okay.
That's the current situation. Yeah. It's wonderful.
It's so really crazy. Like, yeah, that is so intense. 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. and then no weekends. So has that lifted, or no, you're back under curfew now?
No, we are not, because during the protest it was clear that nobody, I mean, people cannot stand it anymore. And it's not us who are guilty, you know, it's they who didn't manage it well. You know, they were pretending and making favoring conditions to themselves without thinking about the people, you know, and we don't have, I mean, our health system is completely destroyed during, over these decades, you know, so it was clear that we don't have enough space. You have to manage it really well if you want to provide health system for all. So now it's kind of, we have some measures that you, for example, need to wear masks in all the closed spaces. It's not allowed to have inside or outside more than 10 people standing together. No public events, very high fines if you don't wear a mask in the public transportation and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
But people are really taking care. You know, it's not about the measure, it's that the people are aware of what might happen to them, and they're really taking care about how they behave.
Yeah, is there, it feels like this a little bit in the US as well, not necessarily, well, I guess with the pandemic stuff too, but that there's like this government structure that a lot of people are, do not like and are like sort of angry at. They don't really know where to put their anger necessarily, but everybody's just kind of like angry and fed up. And so out of that, you sort of see some of the citizens and the community like sort of coming together more than they have. Like, have you seen that in Serbia at all, or in Belgrade where you're at?
Well, yes, but not related to the COVID outbreak. So, I mean, to give just a bit of my background, my collective, our collective, we are one of the founders of this big social and political movement on the Belgrade Round, which was kind of opposing and fighting against Belgrade waterfront development. It's a huge privatization. Basically, it's a huge development project that is privatizing 100 hectares of city land. building like 2 million square meters of luxurious residential and office spaces, shopping malls and stuff like that. And we were very involved into kind of mobilizing people and addressing all the problems around it. So we managed to bring like 30,000 people on the streets of Belgrade and kind of having protests every 2 weeks and so on and so forth. So what I felt after it is like that there are like different initiatives, mostly like urban development oriented, popping up around the city.
Okay.
So, you know, when like the machines are coming, like the bulldozers to attack your green area in your blog, then you have a community who is organized. And what we are kind of doing as a collective ministry of space now, I'm not anymore part, and our collective is not anymore part of this political platform. We are kind of facilitating these processes. We educate people how to participate in the urban planning processes, how to stop that development or how to improve it or like fight for their own interests. So there are many things that are like happening currently in Belgrade in terms of that.
Gotcha. And Belgrade, excuse my ignorance, Belgrade is the capital of Serbia, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. And are there other like big cities, or is Serbia like mostly sort of like a countryside area? Does that make sense what I'm asking? Is it
it's a good question, but I never received that question and think about it in that way. So Serbia, so Belgrade is the capital of Serbia, and it was once the capital of Yugoslavia, the former country with 6 different republics. So it remained the capital of the country that is now 3 times smaller than the previous one, or at least like the first iteration of the previous. And we were falling apart for many years and destroying our country. So it's mostly kind of urbanized. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
So Belgrade is the capital, and everybody goes to Belgrade. It has like 2 million people, and then the second city is maybe Niš on the south,
okay,
with 100,000 people, and then on the north, Novi Sad. The rural areas are mostly completely abandoned and neglected, which is really, really bad because the countryside, the nature is wonderful and it's very diverse. So we have from the very flat parts to really kind of, this wild nature and mountains. And now with what COVID brought as a good thing is that people are starting discovering Serbia, traveling around, visiting waterfalls, rivers, mountains. Now people are more discussing more about like buying some property, moving to village, like to rural areas. So it's nice to see that,
Yeah.
But the smaller cities, the towns, and the countryside is completely neglected.
Interesting. That's super fascinating. What's like your favorite space out in sort of those rural areas? You mentioned sort of like waterfalls and mountains. Take me on a little tour of Serbia.
Well, my favorite place is Tara Mountain, very close to border with Bosnia, and that's where I'm going tomorrow. And it reminds me a lot on the nature in Montenegro, and I have Montenegrin origins, so my parents are from there. So I like when it's like super wild and it's like sharp, and it's not like, I like that, like it's like drama in the nature. That's something that really drives me. But I also spent like this weekend on the super north part of Serbia, like literally on the border with the fence between Serbia and Hungary. Is like wonderful village called Kalebija. It's like property from some artists who are Hungarians, but their origins, but then lived a lot for like 25 years in France, and now they have this space where they do performances, where they build the houses from mud, where they eat the food that they grow. It was like, wow, this is amazing. So I was just sharing photos with everybody I know. Yeah, it was really lovely.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. That sounds like something I want to do for sure. All right. Yeah, I will second you on the sort of like wild spaces. So I've done like a pretty good amount of traveling in what I would call like more westernized places. But I went to Hungary and Romania a couple years ago. And I remember Romania especially, like in the US, everybody's yard is like a square, you know, like this grass is different than their grass, and like it never encroaches on each other's property, or like a tree needs to be cut down if it's like hanging over somebody else's property. But when we were taking a train in Romania, and like everybody's yards just sort of like encroached on everybody else's. And so it looked just really wild. And I love that. It's like really beautiful to just let nature be nature, you know?
Yeah, exactly. No, but the cities are looking the same here. You know, Belgrade, it's like it would be great to come here and to see it. It's super eclectic. It doesn't have one unique style at this point. It's a combination of whatever you can imagine, from the Roman Empire over Ottoman Empire, over this kind of brutalist socialist architecture, which for me is completely breathtaking. From like the small family units that are just in between huge giant socialist buildings, you know, it's like a mix of literally everything. And I like it like that, you know, I'm enjoying that visually. And I also, you know, Belgrade has a specific energy, and the people who are super welcoming and open and hilarious, basically, you know, with a great sense of humor, which keep us alive. You know, without the humor, we would probably be like a black hole here in Bali.
Yeah, totally, totally. I cannot wait to come and visit you for sure, because this sounds really amazing. And again, like parts of the world that I haven't spent huge amounts of time in. So also like the history of that is super fascinating as well. Maybe a good segue there is, what do you think one stereotype of a Serbian is that you want to try to combat?
Oh, that's a difficult question because you know, we were exposed to the international boycott for many years because of the wars we had. So it's kind of, there are a bunch of things that are not true that we're kind of labeling Serbian people in general. And to be honest, there are a group of people who misrepresented Serbians. And that's one thing. But now with this kind of opening the borders and putting Serbia back on map, the government is trying kind of to pose a new identity, which is something that we didn't even discuss as a society. What kind of new identity we want to, and why new, what was wrong with the old one, you know, it was not created by us, so it's kind of confusing. So there are many misinterpretations, from like being war criminals to now being like hot girls and nightlife, you know. So it's,
Okay.
yeah, it's a label of Belgrade is like in Berlin,
Yeah.
which is also kind of misleading a bit.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, you know, I don't think I was trying to sort of, I've been trying to think of what sort of stereotypes or like the archetype of different, of the people I meet in different countries are. I really don't have very much about Serbia, but I think it's also because, you know, we just, Americans don't really learn about that region of the world very often. So it's like, which I guess is good in some ways, like a blank slate. Like I'm like, I don't know what I would say a Serbian is, but that's probably better. I'll just let you guys show me. Yep.
No, exactly. No, but it's I think there is kind of a Balkan nation, not only like Serbia, but they're like a Balkan people. They're kind of different, you know. They're like a bit more macho,
Okay.
patriarchal society, um, strong drinkers.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I guess that's probably one, but it wouldn't necessarily be
But
all
it's also,
Serbians
but to
who
be
like.
honest, you know, it's what is very common in Balti is that people really like to be good hosts, and you really, when you come and visit and meet people, they're very open. They're opening their doors for you. You know, you sit and drink raki and hear stories about their lives and different opinions, and you get lost in all these words. You know, and that's something that I get kind of the first impression that I would share with people about Balkans.
Yeah, no, that's lovely.
People here suffered a lot from 90s and ongoing. So, I mean, they're really strong, very
Yeah.
energetic, and very strong.
Yeah. It's a good segue into if coronavirus hadn't sort of screwed this all up and I was there, what would we do together?
Oh, we will wander around the Belgrade to the places that we are as a collective involved or that we created. So the first place that I would take would be Street Gallery, which is an open space gallery passage that was a legal parking and a public toilet in the middle of the city center. And 10 years ago, we turned it into kind of gallery space, but not with the idea to have an artistic intervention gallery, but to create, to tackle the question of commercialization of or misuse of public spaces, how they can be designed different, what they can produce. So this gallery basically overpassed the format of gallery. It's like more like social space where people meet, gather, discuss. And it's also a space where we try to present all the topics that we would like to talk about, to discuss them, like LGBTQ rights, like dismantling Roma settlements, privatization of factories, also presenting young artists who don't have an opportunity to show their work somewhere else, or the artists who are working in DIY spaces. So in that sense, it's like really a huge responsibility, but also a huge opportunity to have a public space that can offer the topics for discussion for a wider society.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds lovely. And even what you were talking about, sort of like the brutalist, maybe socialist architecture, and then these like small houses in between. It sounds like a really fascinating place to visit.
Yes, I would take you from, if we do a tour, then I would take you from the neighborhood, which is kind of every building is extended during the 90s, where people had to kind of find a way to have the roof above their heads. So the whole neighborhood is legally extended. Oh. And it looks like, you are on LSD going through the mushrooms, something like that, it's completely like Alice in Wonderland, something like that kind of effect. Through the city center to Novi Belgrade, which is New Belgrade, part of Belgrade that was built in the 50s during the socialist period of Yugoslavia, where all the brutalist architecture is based. And that's literally impressive. And then we have two rivers, which is huge potential. And you could lay down on the river banks, enjoy, have a drink, whatever.
That sounds so lovely. I am getting quite antsy being stuck in New York. I mean, I love New York. It is my home, but I travel quite a bit. And so I'm just like, I got to get out of here. Yeah. Are you a big traveler as well? Did you want to talk about a favorite travel story?
Yes. So I just wanted to tell you, I was last year in October in New York, okay. 5 days. And I felt like, like I'm entering the machine which won't stop, it would just like destroy me. But even on the walk side, when you're walking, I had an impression if I stop, it would be just overwhelm me. People would not care. I had to take the tempo, with all the others. My favorite traveling is in 2006, basically I love all of my travelings, especially if friends are included, and wherever we go, even if we go to North of Serbia or Croatia or Bosnia or whatever, it's always super unique experience. But one that was life-changing is the travel that I had in 2006 when I was 23 years old. I was hitchhiking from Quito in Ecuador to Peru in Lima.
Amazing.
Actually, Lima in Peru, yeah, for like 2 months, something like that.
Oh my gosh.
And that's something that completely changed the way how I started to think about people, things, our environment, myself, how I behave with others. And it was a huge experience.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about that. Why did that have such an impact on how you thought about yourself and the way you interact or connect with other people?
Yeah, the first thing that I felt was like, wow, everything is possible. I can do whatever I want in my life. even though, I was standing in the ocean, and I was just like thinking, wow, where I am. The world is so big. I'm so small. I'm like completely on the opposite side of the globe, now standing with 23 years. I can do whatever I want in my life. That's a super feeling. I mean, I'm also kind of, from time to time, I have that feeling. That's how I'm empowering myself, But how it happened is that we had at the technical universities here, you have this kind of interim where they send you mostly to the third world countries. So that's how I ended up in Ecuador. And it was also when Serbia was under visa regime, so we didn't travel almost at all. And that was, one of the biggest travelings that I had also by myself, so you have to figure out how you spend your money, where do you sleep, with whom you speak, to whom you're open, to whom not. The people who are, afraid by how they look are actually somebody who would like to help, so you're like kind of breaking these stereotypes about people. Also, what I noticed is the huge discrepancy between the rich people in South America and those who are super poor. And this is like the biggest injustice that I saw in my life. Right. That I also saw when I was in Brazil in 2016. I had the same feeling. It was shocking. But, right. You don't see the people around you, and you could help with your money or just like changing your lifestyle or whatever. I mean, I don't get that.
Yeah, and then like the last question I want to ask is just what do you miss about pre-coronavirus times? Like, what's that one thing?
Oh, I miss going out with a bunch of friends. So now I always have to calculate how many of us can meet and where to meet. I like to celebrate my birthday for like 3 days at least. And this year, because it was 9th of July, I could not make it. Oh, so I was kind of, oh no, I miss everybody. But then the protest happened, so everybody were there. So I had 10,000 people on my birthday, which was great. So in that sense, something happened, which was good. And what I miss a lot are the concerts during the summer.
Okay.
Concerts and like dance playing in bars and stuff like that. It's something that is super nice during summer in Belgrade, and something that is kind of completely chilling atmosphere. That's what I miss a lot.
Totally, yeah. I will say that towards the beginning of sort of the lockdown in New York, I was quite happy with like, there's a more focus on the outdoors, and like you could go up to bar windows and like grab a drink and then go to the park. But as it's continued, I'm like, oh, remember that bar that you love because it's like small and crowded all the time and you can bump into new people? That's not available to you anymore. So I'm starting to really miss the bar scene.
And also hugging, I really like to hug people, and I'm very tactile, I like to touch, something. And now it's, you cannot do that. I mean, I don't feel comfortable with that. And I don't even feel, when somebody, you meet somebody in the street that you haven't seen for a long period of time, and that person goes directly into you, you're like, no, I don't hug, I don't touch, no. I sound like a lunatic, but I just like, we have to take care. And that's something that I miss, really.
Right. Yeah, I'm right there with you. So, well, yeah, thank you so much. This was such an interesting conversation. And I cannot wait to get to Serbia and hang out and see everything that Serbia has to offer.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. And next time you come, we go to Rakia together and then discovering the city.
Thanks so much.